Hi there, Frank here for premium members for the trading day of March the 6th, 2026, a Friday. So in this video, we're going to focus on the charts, but of course we are aware of the international situation. Now, as to the indexes here, the market is stuck in a range. We get more interested after it will break out from the range. Markets never stay in a range forever, of course. So as soon as something happens that gets us interested, we'll get back to the indexes. Until then, let's just walk through some of the other asset classes here. Let's start with currencies. There's not much to do here, not a market that I really want to be involved. I'm keeping an eye on a few of them. For example, the Canadian dollar, complex bullflag on the daily, not really anything to do. The Swiss franc is another one I'm looking at. I'm monitoring, but there's no action item so far. Commodities and energies first. Of course, the three CL, RB, and HO are going up to the sky, explainably. And we've been on top of these moves since for the past 2-3 weeks. You can go back. Starting February 18, we started talking about the CL based on not because we knew anything about the future, but because we knew how to analyze crowd behavior. And this was the area here, you see, where we started to become bullish and went long. It pays, I think it makes sense to look at the long-term chart. So here is the big picture. And the CL can easily go to 100. ETFs are available. Do your research and make the most of this situation. Now, moving on to RB and HO. HO first. Here we go, vertical markets and new highs on the HO. And on the RB, there is still one more pivot above us. Let's have a look on the weekly. So first of all, the daily is vertical. Beautiful breakout here. And here we go. So about 3.2 is where I expect this to go. Again, you can trade this with ETFs, do your research, and see what you can do with it. Back to currencies, I continue to keep an eye on MBT, which is Bitcoin. What we said, when it hits the upper Keltner on the daily, that's when I will start to get interested. But you see, the reading and our prediction so far has been correct. We were talking about establishing the likeliness of the establishment of a base here around 60, 65. And so far, that's what's happening. Of course, we have to wait and see. Okay, let's move on some other markets. And GCSI, not really much is happening. The only thing I can say about this, that after a climax, usually there's a sell-off. So what I would have expected as a default price action is something like this, retest a previous area. That's not what happened so far anyway. No sell-off. That, I think that's an indication of this market still wanting to go higher, perhaps 6,000. That's how I see this. Again, it's difficult to get involved now because there's no real setup. Okay, and SI is also same story. Okay, let's move on to some markets where we can do something, and I think agriculturals are giving us some opportunities. For example, corn has triggered. Here we go on the daily. So if you want to do something with this, there's a previous pivot at 465. You can target that. And interestingly, there are good bullish setups or price action on the others as well. So let's just go one by one. ZL is continuing the slide. Remember, we talked about this a few times. Another big move here. If you're not in this, don't worry about it, but learn the lesson for next time. And also, let's look at ZO, I think. All three, ZO, ZS, ZW, are going up. You see, there's a little bit of exhaustion here on the daily, but the ZS, soybeans, here we go, toying with a breakout area, and there's room to go back to 1550. See, so this looks good for a long trade. How you would want to do this? Well, first of all, this is a weekly chart, so think ETFs or whatever way you want to do this. This is a slow market, and but the chart looks beautiful for a breakout. ZW, We had 1R a couple of days ago, and now the market doesn't seem to be stopping too much, continuing the journey to the upside, and there's room on the weekly. It's always a good idea to see where the next pivot might be, because that might work as a market, as a magnet for price. So this is what we can say about the markets. Practice caution and perhaps patience on currencies. And we'll be back in the morning. And until then, mindful trading.